Hello, and welcome everybody to Flicker Effect, episode 344. We are recording this and broadcasting live on Sunday, September 27th, 2020. This week, it's going to be a little more laid-back affair, I think. It'll just be Bobby and myself. How's it going, Bobby?
Oh, it's going all right. It's going to be one of those types of shows.
Yeah, a little more laid back kind of show. We've got some news we chat about this week, stuff we've watched as always. Really quick, for those of you new to the show, would like to always bring up that you can find our show a couple different ways. We broadcast live most Sunday nights on at youtube.com/Flicker Effect. We also have a podcast version of the show that is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, the iHeartRadio app, and basically wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search for Flicker Effect. Yeah, with all that out of the way, happy Sunday, Bobby. How's it going? Happy another week.
It's going all right. Another week. You know, it's interesting because we haven't just done a show where it's just the two of us in a while, and
Right.
it's more like when we have everyone together, there's definitely a specific flow. But I feel like when it's just me and you, we're able to just kind of like go wherever the show takes us, and it always pretty makes for at least good conversation. So
Right.
one thing I was thinking about is that in terms of, and we had been texting about this, is the new systems are coming out for game consoles. Got the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, and a lot of people weren't so lucky trying to secure them a new system.
Yeah.
There was debacles on the PS5 side, and there were some debacles on the Xbox side as well. But you did pretty well for yourself.
I did all right, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's funny because I went into this whole thing. I mean, backtracking a little bit, I'm a PS4 user. I don't have an Xbox. In fact, I've never owned an Xbox. I had a roommate once who had one that I used when I lived with him for a bit. And I remember I had an Xbox account or whatever, Microsoft account on it. But I haven't played Xbox. I don't think I've ever touched an Xbox One. Like maybe I've touched one like a display in a store, maybe. But anyway, I went into this going, okay, I'm going to get it a PS5. I want an upgrade. I have a 4K TV now. So it'd be nice to game in 4K on it. I'm definitely going to get a PS5. And then, like you said, like the PS5 release, because there was really no announcement on when until kind of the day before, but then it just started being released by retailers like the night before, and it was a total shit show. I ended up being able to get one though. Like was it the next day, I think, that Walmart was like, okay, we're gonna have another sale again tonight. Yeah, and it took me a while. Like if I could have very easily have given up like in 5 minutes and been like, oh, it says that they're out. But it was in my cart and they weren't taking it out of my cart. So I just kept trying, kept getting different messages every time. Either, hey, it's sold out, or it just couldn't process it or whatever. And then finally it would get a step beyond where I last was. And finally it went through. I was like, oh, okay, I have one. I guess persistence paid off. And then like Xbox did their announcement, and we knew when Xbox's pre-order date was going to be, and I was like kind of toying with the idea of like, do I get an Xbox too? Like I don't need two consoles, but I've been very curious about the Xbox. I think because I haven't had one, looking at the specs of the Xbox, I will say, like, I do like the look of the Xbox. I like that simple black square look about it. Long story short, Walmart paid off for me with the Xbox. I ended up getting an Xbox Series X. I think Walmart is telling me that the PS5, it'll deliver on release day. But if I saw, they're telling me that the because I think the Series X officially releases 2 days earlier, right? I think on the 10th of November. And I think the
I believe
PS5
so.
releases on the 12th of November, if I remember correctly. And at least Walmart
Yeah.
is telling me that they're also going to deliver the Xbox on the 12th. Like it'll ship on the 10th.
Oh, interesting.
So basically, I'm probably going to try to take that day off work and just
Yeah, I was going to
be
say.
home for both of their deliveries, which will probably get delivered at the exact same time. And it's funny now, you know, I don't. It's kind of like I think I'm slightly more excited about the Xbox, and I think that is just
Really?
because I've never had an Xbox. So it's an even
Mm,
it's going to be an experience that's almost completely new to me. I mean, it's a gaming system. I mean, it's not going to be that crazy different, but you know what I mean? I don't know. I think
right.
because I've never
Yeah.
had one, there's something about the Xbox that has me more excited than the PS5. I don't know why.
It's interesting.
Though, I mean, like
You know,
when you look at exclusive titles to the Sony system right now, those are mostly titles that I'm interested in as opposed to the stuff
yeah.
Xbox puts out. But I don't know. There's something again. There's something about it that I'm kind of excited about it. I don't know.
It's interesting because I think that uh, I can understand that from a perspective of, like you said, you never had an Xbox, so it's that curiosity and seeing
Hmm.
how that would work. And I've relied on my Xbox for the last few years, even though I don't game a lot. I've relied on it as my entertainment hub, which is ironically the thing that kind of got them in trouble with this current generation because they were kind of trying to position it as an entertainment thing more so than a gaming system. And I think, frankly, made a lot of gamers mad that they didn't have it as a gaming system first in their mindset.
Mm.
And I actually use it that way in the way that it's an entertainment thing for me because any of the things that I have as far as streaming services, I use it through my Xbox. And so I don't have like a Roku stick or a Fire TV stick or Apple TV box or anything like that. I use my Xbox for that. And I think it's an extra click in terms of having to have that on as opposed to just using it through a stick or whatever. But it's never let me down as far as having any of the apps that are out there available for it. It seems to have them day one whenever those things drop. And
Right.
I think that's probably due to Microsoft's preference to have it as sort of a one-stop shopping, all-you-can-eat kind of thing. That entertainment aspect included with the gaming. And you're right. I think that is when it comes to exclusive titles, the PlayStation has a lot of those ones that I would want to play and haven't played. And that's kind of why one of the reasons I should say why I didn't end up getting the PS5 um, is because there aren't any real that I know of exclusive Xbox or PS5 games that you can't get on PS4 right now. Even the Miles Morales game will be
Right.
available on the PS4. And since I missed a lot of those games in the PS4 library that were exclusive titles, I feel like I can play those for now on a PS4 if I can get one on the cheap
Hmm.
and wait till some of those exclusive PS5 games come out where you really have to have that system. And the one thing that I would say that does benefit me to get an Xbox over a PS5 if I were to get one of those first, the Series X, would be that they are allowing you to still use accessories from the current generation on the next system. So I don't have to go out and buy a new controller or, buy some of the other stuff in order to be able to use this new system. So
Right.
I think that's a nice little benefit that unfortunately you don't have because you didn't own an Xbox One
Right.
or
It doesn't
something
really
like that.
affect
So
me.
right, yeah, in that way. But I think for a lot of people who do and just want to move up just because it helps them in that way to not have to go out and get it. And recently, you did end up getting the Xbox Game Pass, right?
Yeah. I signed up like early in the week, or I don't know, a few days ago. I haven't had it long, but I
Mm.
did end up signing up. I think it's like $1 for the first month, and
Oh,
then
that's right. Yeah.
I think it's like 15 a month after that for the ultimate,
Yeah, I
which
believe
allows
so.
you to, I think, to
Hmm.
play on different like PC and Xbox and everything. I've only downloaded one game so far, Gears 5. I've never played a Gears game ever. So it's my first
Yeah.
experience with that. Like that was interesting too, that the game actually started with a previously on, which I was like, okay, this is actually nice. I don't think I've had a game do this before. But
I've never seen that.
yeah, so that helps since I've never played one of those games. Anyway, playing it on the PC has been uh, good so far. I mean, so far, and my PC gaming experience has been solely keyboard and mouse.
Mm.
I would probably pick up an Xbox controller right now to use it on the PC to try that, but since I'm getting a Series X, I'm like, well, I'll just wait till those controllers are
Yeah.
released, and I'll just go ahead and pick up the latest one. I mean, not that it doesn't sound like there's a huge difference in them, I don't think, but yeah, I figured I'll wait till then.
Yeah. Yeah, no, good plan.
Yeah.
It's interesting because of the way that they have things going on with this release of the new system, where with the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series S, they have it to where you don't have to buy those two either of those two systems outright. They have a financing option, which if
Right.
you paid $25 a month, you can get the Series S system, which includes the Game Pass, and it's for 2 years. So you would pay off the system, zero financing kind of thing, and then you pay off the system in the 24 months, and you get the Xbox Game Pass for those 24 months
Mm-hmm.
in return. And the same thing with the Series X. It's $35 a month, and everyone who was online did the math, and you actually come out ahead in terms of paying less money if you did it that way, as opposed to if you already were to, let's say, get the Xbox Game Pass separately and then buy these systems
Mm.
separately, as opposed to doing it at once. I think it's like if you get the Series S, I think it was something like you save something like maybe 50, $60. And then if it's the Series X, you save $80, or it might be swapped
Okay.
somewhere around there. But you save a good little bit of money, which I guess technically you could use that extra money to buy a game or to buy an extra controller or something. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing for this round of systems. And it almost makes me think that there could have been a possibility for these systems to be sold at a higher price because they're not really more expensive than the last go round in terms of pricing. So most people didn't need a financing option for the last go round. So you could easily see them buying these outright at the $500 price point or the $300 price point for the
Yeah.
Series S. So it's kind of a extra incentive thing, I guess. And it's no secret at this point that Microsoft is more interested as using the system, the hardware, as sort of a loss leader in terms of really being able to get you into the subscription service for their Game Pass. But
Right.
it's working because just recently they had announced that Microsoft bought Bethesda
Bethesda.
and
Yeah.
all the games that they have with Doom and I think what was the Elder
Elder
Scrolls
Scrolls.
and Fallout, and so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they're definitely not looking to be far behind Sony this time when it comes to
Right.
game sales. So Sony may still outpace them, but in this system war, it was outpacing them by 3-1, and I think they would probably be looking at trying to keep it at least competitively close instead of 3-1 system sales, maybe 3-2 or something that's just not just outright trouncing. So
Right.
they definitely seem to be happy to at least sell the systems, and if not the systems, then the Game Pass and being able to use those on your PC, sort of like how you're doing right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited about getting them. If anything, I'm annoyed that now, because I bought the PS5 first, I wish I had now in hindsight, I wish I had bought the digital version of the PS5 since I bought the Series
Mm.
X and it has a disk drive. And I can just, because I think we
Yeah.
may have talked about this on here before. I mean, really, my biggest motivation for getting one with a disc drive is that I do have 4K films that, I've purchased physical discs
Yeah.
of, and I'll use that as the player for it. When it comes to games, I've at this point lately turned into just purely downloading games, not buying physical
Yeah.
games anymore. So, yeah, I mean, because of the way Microsoft did their two systems, I was like, well, I'm getting the Series X. It's the more powerful one. But the two PS5 systems were basically the same, or are the same, other than the disc drive.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, damn, I kind of wish I'd gotten the digital version, saved $100 on that. But oh
Yeah.
well. And
Yeah. Well, and
is what it is.
especially for you, it works out. Well, I could understand why you would definitely want to get the digital version. Uh, for me, it's still somewhat, well, not really. I was going to say it's somewhat of a quandary, but I think for myself, for the most part, I could see where I would get a PS5, the digital version. But more than likely, I still see more of a scenario of me getting a PS5 with a disc drive. Same with the Xbox, because where you kind of, we both would use it for movies, but since I tend to watch less movies, that wouldn't be my main motivating factor. My main motivating factor is the opposite of yours when it comes to games, is that as opposed to me getting digital games, when I get games, I may not necessarily get the game the day of release. It may be a few months after release. And so I would prefer to go on Craigslist and buy it from somebody who's selling it for $20, the disc version,
Mm,
because, they played it out and don't need it anymore. And
right.
so, as opposed to ever trying to get it digitally that day of, or even maybe there's a discount on it at some point digitally, but it's never going to be as low as someone selling it just to get it off their hands for $20 because
Right.
GameStop will only give them $6 for it. So, I think that's kind of where I still would want to keep a disc version of a system.
And I guess I do own PS4 games that are discs that
Mm.
I could see a couple of those games I'm still gonna want to play. And
Right.
I should I mean, my understanding, I'll be able to play those on a PS5. So yeah,
Yeah.
I guess in that sense too, having the disc drive is good. So,
They have said, and I would imagine that you would never run into the scenario where it'd be the exception to the rule. But I
mm,
think I read an article where it said that 99.9% of PS4 games should be compatible with playing on the PS5. They didn't, I don't believe, make that same guarantee for PS3, PS2, PS1 games. But I think their positioning there is that most people probably wouldn't be looking to play that back catalog of
no,
games on a disc. But and that's fair to assume that. I would maybe say that's probably true. And if some of those games do exist, maybe they would make them digital versions in their like PS Now or
right,
PS Plus system.
yeah,
So
that's what I would imagine
um,
too.
so one other thing that I was thinking about is that me and you both got new phones.
We did. We both got the same phone. The this
Yeah.
this this guy right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Surface Duo. We
Hmm.
haven't talked about it on here really. I mean,
No.
I think it's dangerous to bring it up. I feel like we could cover the Surface Duo over an hour. I mean, there's a lot we could talk about today, but I will say real quick, I went from an iPhone to this. I wasn't even using an Android phone, though I've had Android phones before. It's not like I've
Yeah.
been like a solely iPhone guy. I've actually switched around phones a decent amount. I had a Windows phone for a while, as you know.
Yep.
I had an Android phone a couple different times. I had iPhones in between there. Most recently, I had an iPhone for I think the past 3 or 4 years now. Um,
3 years, I think, at least.
at least three. I think it might have been four. I can't remember. Anyway, um, and I don't know. There's something about this phone. I mean, for those who don't know, I mean, yeah, it's a two-screen device. Opens up like that, you know. Um, but yeah, like I don't know. I like it a lot actually. um,
Yeah.
it's different. I mean, for anyone who might at all be interested in this, it might be the kind of thing where you want to give it some time to like just get used to using it. It's such a different phone experience, not just having a single display that's always right there and easy to get
Yeah.
to. I say easy, like it's not difficult to get to these screens. It's just the
You have
nature
to
of the
open it up.
device. You have to open it up, and there's a nice thing about like that you can kind of close it to almost like cut yourself off from it when you need to. Like I don't know, it's just a different experience. Handling it is just different. And you know, it's funny too. I've been away from Android for a little bit. I guess I don't know if this is a thing with Android 10 and ongoing where Android 10 now has gestures, but you can still use the three button method if you choose to. I actually turned three button on this afternoon just to try it for a
Really?
bit.
Hmm.
I will say, I mean, yeah, you're cutting off more of your screen at the bottom by adding those three
Oh, is that
buttons.
right?
Well, yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it's because since those three buttons are always there at the bottom, it kind of eliminates some of your screen real estate. Not much, but I'm gonna give it a shot. There's definitely bugginess about this phone right now, but overall,
Yeah.
it's been working pretty well for me, and I'm pretty confident that with future updates, it's gonna get even better. But I don't know. I like this phone. I don't know what are your thoughts real quick on it?
Very similar. I mean, I had been looking forward to this phone since they announced it last year, around December or November. Panos from Microsoft,
Yeah.
Panay, he had came on stage and announced this and the Surface Neo at the same time, which got pushed back into next year for the
Mm-hmm.
Surface Neo. But this itself, this device was supposed to come out in the end of this year, November, December, but ended up coming out in September because partially because of the specs. It has a lot of last year's specs and it doesn't have all the bells and whistles that a newer phone would have. And because of that, in addition to the fact that Samsung was coming out with their Z Fold 2, and there was already an LG Velvet out there, that they didn't want to kind of wait all the way into the end of the year. Especially, I think that the new iPhones will be announced next month, as the rumor mill says. That they didn't really want to wait that long and really be behind the point where most people will have already picked up their phones by September and October to then
Right.
try and
True.
wait. So try to get ahead of it a little bit. But like you said, with that, I think that maybe that's why there is some bugginess in some of the software because they kind of pushed it out a little bit before it was completely ready. And I think I had read somewhere recently that they said that there might be an update coming on or around October 11th, which
Mm.
is just around the corner. So that'll be interesting to see if that holds true. But nevertheless, they do seem to be very much in support of the product because one, they gave it their Surface name, and they do seem to treat that line of products very well and make sure that it's nurtured and cared for properly, especially because it's Panos's sort of baby in that
Mm-hmm.
way. And also, they've already started working on the second version of it that they've been doing within the last couple months. So they definitely believe in it, and it's the something that's you'll maybe see as a new form factor. I think I had read that Google is working on a dual screen phone themselves, and so is Samsung from the rumors.
Mm.
Something called a Galaxy S, I think they say it was the name that they were throwing around that I saw that it might be called, which would be a dual screen, which would be interesting for them because they already have the Galaxy Fold,
Right.
the Z Fold, which in the difference between that and this is that the Z Fold is one flat slab of a screen. It's not split into two actually separate screens. So this would be them kind of covering both bases to say, hey, we don't know which way the market might fall in terms of these foldable devices, maybe people will prefer two screens separate as opposed to one big screen. And we're just going to cover both sides to see where it falls. And
Yeah.
I think that that's pretty smart decision on their part, because when you think of, honestly, at least in my eyes, when you think of Android devices, I almost singularly think of Samsung because,
Yeah.
a lot of the other makers aren't as big, at least not here in the US.
No, I agree with you. I mean, and I will say, going, talking about the Duo, not surprisingly, yeah, if there's one big negative about it for me, the really standout negative is the camera.
Mm-hmm.
It does not have a camera on the outside. It just has the single camera. And when it comes to the design, I totally get why they did it that way. And in fact, I kind of hope they keep it that way with future devices. I kind of hope they don't add a camera to the outside. But the camera that is on there, I mean, I will say it's not. I've heard in other videos, like one video in particular, it just called terrible. I'm like, no, like it's one of those things that's like an example of like when people just overuse like the extreme version and description of something. Like, no, terrible's a bit much. Like, it's not. I've taken pictures of it. It's fine, but with it, it's
Yeah.
fine. But yeah, it's not great. I mean, I don't know if it's a software thing. I don't know if you've noticed this. I took some pictures with it today. And when I first open the camera app and go to take a picture with it, I press the button and it literally sometimes takes 3 seconds to actually take the photo. It's kind of weird. Have you had that problem? I don't know if you've taken any photos with yours or.
I messed around with it initially, and
Yeah.
that was one of the things why, for me, it wasn't a negative in the way that the camera is it's been made. I think most people just say it's at the very least okay,
It's
but
fine.
I
Yeah.
don't think I've had any specific points of issue with it, because I don't take very many pictures, and so I don't tend to have much experience, regardless of if it was my old phone, which could take really good pictures, or
Hmm.
with this phone that is takes okay pictures. I don't use the feature enough to know what's normal, like how quickly after I push take a picture should it go. Now I do know that 3 seconds would be a long time in terms for it to
It's
actually
quite a
capture that
delay.
picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can understand that. I could feel that difference, but in terms of other aspects, I wouldn't notice as much.
Hmm.
But in the times that I've used it, I don't think I've had that issue where it took that long for it to actually snap the
It's
photo. But
weird. I when
yeah,
I've noticed it's like the first shot, and I don't know if it's the kind of thing where if I had the app open a little longer and waited to take that first photo, it wouldn't be as bad because then if I take more shots, there's definitely not that kind of delay. It's like
hmm,
that first photo. I pressed it. I remember the first time I was out and about and I wanted to take a photo of something to share it with someone, and I pressed it and I'm like, is it gonna do anything? And then as I'm moving the camera, it took the photo, and I had
yeah,
to take it again a couple times. But that's even something I feel like will kind of a bug that will get fixed. But when it comes to the quality of the
yeah,
camera, I mean, no, it's not. It's definitely not the best camera on a cell phone by any stretch of the imagination, but it's also not terrible.
yeah.
It's fine. I mean, I've taken some photos that I, at least looking at them on my phone, I'm like, yeah, these are pretty good. I post these on Instagram, and I don't think anybody
Yeah.
would be scrolling through their Instagram feed going, "Oh God, look at this shitty looking photo. What did he take that with?"
Not to mention,
Like,
yeah,
you
well,
know,
and that's the thing when you say that, is that I've heard, again, I don't have enough experience with it to say it from personal experience, but people have said that even if you take a picture with a really good camera, or phone, that Instagram shrinks the
yeah, they.
quality of the image anyway. So
Hmm.
it's not like, you would really be able to notice that anyway, because it's only outputting so much in terms of the picture quality.
Right.
So I could totally see where, with its okay camera, you taking pictures and then posting them on Instagram, they're going to look fine to people because it's at least meeting the requirements of what the photo limits and max are for Instagram pictures. So
But then it
there's
also
that.
goes into what are
But
you used to with like if you had a phone, a more recent generation phone that has 2 to 3 lenses on it, that has like a
yeah,
that has a zoom lens and then a wide angle lens.
wide angle. Yeah.
I was at an event Saturday night. Our local orchestra had its opening night, which because of COVID-19, they're doing their concerts outside almost every performance, or at least this first one was outside. It was at our soccer stadium, and we were all
Mm.
sitting socially distant with masks on. But I mean, I was sitting far enough away that I remember I took it out to take a photo of it, and I was like, "Oh man, the zoom lens would be nice right now." That I had on my iPhone
Mm.
10. Not a big deal. I was able to take
Yeah.
the photos fine, but
Yeah.
times like that, that's just an example of like you might find instances if you're used to a more recent camera that had different lens options that this has a
Right.
fixed lens and that's all you got. Anyway, the camera is
Well,
fine, but if I had to pick one thing, and I knew this going into it when I bought the phone, like that, like, hey, the camera is going to be a step back from what I'm used to on a
yeah.
phone. But I'm also kind of toying with the idea of like, I still have the iPhone 10X or the iPhone 10s Max that I had before this. And, if I'm going into a situation where, hey, I'm going to want to take photos a lot wherever I'm going, maybe I'll bring that with me and take photos with that. Or take an even better camera if I want to take really great photos,
Yeah.
of course. It's not like I'd
Exactly.
expect to take really great photos on a cell phone. But anyway, that's my only negative. Otherwise, yeah, it's taken some getting used to. But like I've gone back to use my iPhone 10 a couple times for things, and now that phone seems so skinny. Like the screen just already feels so different from this. And there's things I thought were going to be big negatives with this, like the bezels. The bezels are not actually that big a deal to me. And in
Yeah.
fact, when it comes to how the way you have to handle the device, they're kind of nice so that when you're folding it into different positions, you're not touching the screen. You have that bezel space at the top and the bottom that you can touch without touching anything on your display. Yeah, I don't know. I like how thin it is. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I hadn't done that yet, but
Oh, yeah, you got
as
that
you can
bumper on there
see,
too.
I got my bumper on. Yeah. I was so hesitant to put the bumper on
Yeah,
because, for anyone that doesn't know, if you were to see it without this, there's such a clean look to a minimalist design without having
yeah,
this bumper on. But that bumper does help protect it, if you're laying it down on a flat surface or whatnot. And a lot of times, especially like there's this mode that you can have it in, this kind of called like a tent mode, like
mm-hmm.
this. So it's like if you have it like this and you were watching, let's say, YouTube or something here, having this bumper here, laying it on a surface does give that extra little, protection and peace of mind. And I
Yeah,
do find myself being able to, not that I was super scared in handling it before without the bumper, but I feel like it feels more like a rugged device with that
yeah.
bumper on. Like you can really kind of manhandle it a lot more than
Just
without it.
having
But
that grippiness, especially that strip on
yeah,
the back, just being able to hold it, like even if I've been in instances where I'm walking around but it's like I'm not walking far and I'm not going to bother putting it in my pocket and I'm actually just carrying it, it's like just an extra little bit to hold on to there, that just,
exactly.
and like it doesn't feel like it could just like slip out of my hands,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, this is not enough that if I dropped it on the right surface it's still going to die.
for sure, for
Like, but
sure. Yeah,
um it's not going to protect. This is not an OtterBox. This is not going to protect it from anything. But
no,
overall, like as much as I wish I didn't have to put it on there, that's a minimal kind of thing it's adding to it, and
yeah.
I'll probably
Well,
keep it
and
on.
I think I'll keep it on too. And it still gives me one of my favorite things to do with the Surface, which is like back in the day when you would hang up a phone and you could like slam it shut. Well, this
Mm,
does that when you have the book mode, and then you
yeah,
just kind of close it, and it gives that snap
that
sound. I
snap.
just like that sound. I don't know. It's weird. I'm weird, but I love hearing that little snap shut sound when I'm done with something and can close it.
Yeah.
And I've had people ask me about it when I've been out. In fact, I had someone ask me about it today and what I thought about it and whatnot. I think they at
Yeah.
least knew what it was.
I had somebody ask me about it last night at the concert because I was
Yeah.
using it for a mobile ticket to get in to the
Uh,
event. So yeah, yeah. No, I've had a couple questions about it actually. I think.
yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely a conversation starter.
it
But I,
is.
like you said, I enjoy it. I do like it, and gotten quickly used to that form factor and having the two apps open side by side. So
And sure, it's a little
yeah,
wide when it comes to like putting it in your pocket, especially with the bumper on. It's not terrible to put in your pocket. I mean,
no, I don't find so.
but sure, without going back to the first generation iPhone size, like almost any phone lately
Mm.
has been large in my pocket. I mean, the iPhone 10 that I had wasn't this wide, but it was longer.
Longer,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So, I don't know. It's fine when
Yeah.
it comes to the
So,
pocket.
going back to something you just slightly mentioned earlier, when you said you had went the to go watch the game, and there was the socially distancing
Oh,
thing
the
going on
concert.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the concert. Sorry, uh, that actually isn't the only thing you've gone to recently that you had to do some socially distanced stuff, and
It's funny you bring that up because I
had
actually did something today that I had to do some socially distanced stuff, which ended up
really.
being not very socially distant, and I didn't stay long.
Oh,
No,
okay.
I went to Universal Studios today with
Oh,
the kids because I've had an annual pass for there for a while, but I haven't since COVID. I haven't been, and I don't know if I mentioned it on here that I went to a Disney park. I went to
I
Epcot.
don't recall you mentioning that
I
now.
went to Epcot maybe about a month ago now, and that experience was amazing. Like,
Really?
it was dead. Like, I mean, for those
Okay.
who don't know, Disney World is, first of all, they have a reservation system. You can't just walk up to a park with a ticket and go in. You have to basically like say ahead of time you're going to go. You have to like pick, you have to make a reservation to go to the park. And they're very much limiting the capacity of the parks right now. I don't know what percentage Disney's doing. And I don't know if it's a situation where they're meeting that limited capacity or if just a lot of people haven't also wanted to go. But like I went to Epcot, and if you haven't been to Epcot of all the parks also has a lot of room compared to a lot of the other parks. Just walking space, walkways are much bigger. It's just the nature of the park's design. There's a lot of large like plazas. It's just got like a lot more space. My experience at Epcot was fantastic. I mean, it was safer than going to a grocery store, which we all have to do. I mean, there was a ton of
Right.
room. It was dead. I took some video. It was a ghost town practically, which was amazing.
Really?
I mean, and maybe the biggest thing that you have to get used to, and it's not a big deal, especially because like right now we have the Epcot Food and Wine Festival going on. There's a lot of eating and drinking that you do at Epcot, and Disney asks that you don't, if you're going to eat or drink something, you can't do it like walking around. You need to stop somewhere, take your mask off, and eat or drink. And then if you're going to be walking and moving around, you need to have a mask on. So with all that said, yeah, my Epcot experience was fantastic. I wish it were always like that. Obviously, it can't be. The parks can't operate at those kind of capacities. I know they're not making
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
But then today, I was curious because I do have Universal annual passes. I'm like, I don't know what it's been like, but I'm going to go check it out. And it was different. It was a lot busier. There was a lot more people at Universal. It's my understanding they're also limiting their capacity, but I think it's a higher percentage than Disney is doing. And there was a decent amount of
Okay.
people there. I will. With that said, everyone was wearing their masks. They don't. I don't think Universal has those kind of rules. At least they're not really enforcing them when it comes to hey, if you're eating and drinking, you need to not be moving. Because I definitely
Mhm.
I never saw any information saying as much. And people would definitely, if they were walking around with a drink, they would walk around with their mask off, drinking their drink.
Okay.
But I would say I never felt unsafe, but it was also, there was a decent amount of people there. All the rides, or like many of them, were at least 30-minute waits up to an hour wait. And it was
That's
busy enough and hot enough here that I was like, we're not going to be here long. we weren't there long. But anyway, there
hmm.
was all that. But maybe what you're referring to is my first trip back to a movie theater.
That was what I was
Yeah,
referring to.
I finally
Yeah.
went and saw Tenet early this week. That was great in that there was nobody there. Like,
Literally, or maybe
no,
just like a
not
handful of
literally,
people.
but I mean, so I saw it in Adobe Cinema, and I also went on a Monday night, which in terms of my schedule just worked out. And actually, I was happy to be going on a Monday night because I figured it won't be that busy on a Monday night. I kind of want to go when there's less people there.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, just walking in felt so weird. Like, I'm like, there's just nobody here.
Mm.
And I mean, seeing the parking lot, I'm like, man, this parking lot's mostly empty. And then in our Dolby Cinema theater, we were one of three groups. Like, there were only two other like pairs in that movie theater watching Tenet.
What was the by the way, sorry,
Yeah.
but did you happen to look at showtimes for the day of Tenet in terms of,
For
because you
that
obviously
day,
knew what time you could see it, but yeah, did you see in general what the showtimes were?
I
And I
didn't.
asked that because, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, no. I was going to say, I didn't go out of my way to pay attention to it. I think when I booked my tickets ahead of time, I had noticed there was one other showing at like 3:30, and I think that might have been it because I went at like
Mm,
7:15. Because yeah, I had, I was working that day. I had to go
yeah.
to a later showing, at
Well, the
least after
reason
work.
that and that makes sense, but I think the reason why I asked in the first place is because um, in in the different days that I had looked prior to going to the first time I saw it, which was in San Diego, and then when I also saw it in Orange County, and when I looked at times, it seemed like the first showings were around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and maybe the last showing was like at 10 o'clock or something like that.
Right.
And I don't know if I've read this anywhere specifically, but it doesn't seem like anyone has morning showings of anything anymore.
Hmm.
At least during these times, I haven't seen something like 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock. It's all been sort of afternoon into the evening, and I don't know, maybe the reasoning other than maybe they feel like it's not going to be a lot of people right now, and so they're just limiting the hours that the theater's open to save on costs and stuff in terms
Mm-hmm.
of electricity and all that good stuff. So yeah, I was just curious if maybe you had saw if there were earlier showings at your theater, and maybe it was just sort of a local thing.
I don't think there was. And again, this was also a Monday, so
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't at all paid attention to what like the weekend showtimes have been like because
Hmm.
I haven't been looking. Um, but that day, I think there was only two showings of Tenet, at least in Dolby Cinema, and yeah, like a 3:30 and like a 7:15. I think that was all.
Okay.
But yeah, overall, I mean, yeah, there was not many people in there. It was pretty quiet, which was nice. It was funny. I made the mistake of like wearing glasses, and that was like get there, and I'm like wearing glasses, and with how it is with a mask, I was like, oh man, this is gonna be a thing where it's like
Yeah.
trying to fog up my glasses. I'm like adjusting
Yeah.
my mask in all these different positions to get just the right like setup. Where I'm like, come on, I'm about to watch Tenet. I can't have this be a thing. But when it came to Tenet, overall, I really enjoyed it. I totally get what you're saying about seeing it again. This is going to be one of those things, kind of like your review was last week, where it's like, you don't want to talk about spoilers. It's hard to, how do you
Yeah.
say things about this movie? But yeah, as soon as it was over, I was like, okay, yeah, I got to see it one more time. And probably in a movie theater. In fact, I may try to
Yeah.
see it sometime this week because it's like, I also don't want to wait too long. There's stuff that's still fresh in my mind that I kind of want to like jump on it again soon because I overall I really enjoyed the movie, and I'm not gonna say but after I've seen it, I find myself thinking a lot about stuff and thinking, but wait, now does that make sense? Like, given the
Yeah.
rules of the film, and I find myself going, now I'm not sure. And if it doesn't make sense, then now I'm annoyed. and
Yeah.
but now I'm like, I need to watch this again to see if I'm crazy. But the experience itself, I really enjoyed it. I mean, yeah, you brought up a thing, some, maybe a negative that seems to be a thing of Christopher Nolan's, which is like having certain scenes where it's hard to understand your characters.
Yeah.
It to this day, and I say that because this is not the first time this has happened. It was the thing in The Dark Knight Rises. It was the thing in Interstellar.
Yep.
It kind of boggles my mind why it's a thing. I mean, for someone who strikes me as kind of a perfectionist with his
Hmm.
filmmaking, I don't understand the logic behind having these moments where you can't understand your characters. With that said, for the most part, it wasn't as bad as I maybe expected in this movie. There was,
Hmm.
definitely caught the couple times it happens, but I was able to understand, even if I couldn't understand every word. I wasn't immediately like, oh God, did I miss something? Like overall, I was fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the movie I thought was very good. It's not Christopher Nolan's best, but still, it doesn't mean it was bad. I really enjoyed it. So I want to see it again. I hope when I see it again, I don't go, oh God, no, wait, this doesn't make sense at all. Because if it does, then I'll
Mm.
probably not like the movie. But overall, I really liked it.
Yeah. And I think that when I watched it that second time, I feel like I gained a greater appreciation for the film.
Hmm.
Just trying to see how he must have had to storyboard it out and really make it flow in the way that it does, because
Yeah.
you really start to pick up on things a second time around. And you're like, man, for him to have thought of this or to make it make sense. And that's
Hmm.
why I think that even if you were to watch it a second time, or whenever you were able to fully go back and see if these things make sense, I'm almost willing to bet that they do, because in the way that he had to have put this together, it almost forces you to make sure that it makes sense in some way,
Right.
at least, in the story aspect of it, that he wouldn't have a sort of a huge plot hole
Right.
in the way that his story is being told, because it is confusing and hard to completely grasp on a first viewing. So uh, I think that at least from that standpoint, you should be okay with being able to remedy some of what's going on. It's just being able to actually really fully piece it together and grasp it, because the difficulty in it is just that as everything is happening, it's hard to try and figure out how it's happening, because uh, you're on to the next scene or something's going on, and you're trying to focus in on stuff in real time as opposed to trying to think about the mechanics behind it. And so it makes it a little bit harder
Right.
until you've seen it maybe a couple times, where you know how the scene plays out, and then you can think about how they did it in that way. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's hard to do that at a first viewing.
Yeah. No, it is. I'm looking forward to seeing it again. I hope I see it again in the theater, given the kind of movie it is too. That theatrical experiences is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just looking up too to make sure I didn't get his name wrong. The composer, we're used to Nolan
Mm.
so often working with Hans Zimmer. Hans didn't score this film. It was Ludwig Göransson, if I'm getting his last name
Mm-hmm.
correctly,
Yeah.
who a lot of us know is the composer on The Mandalorian
And Black Panther.
and Black Panther. His score was great. I dug it, and
Yeah.
you've heard me say
Same.
I've had questionable
Yeah.
opinions on his Mandalorian score at times,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I know I thought this score was fantastic. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was good too. Kind of a side note. Yeah, I like Tenet. I'm looking forward
Me
to
too.
checking
Me
it
too.
out. Checking it out again. I'm glad we were able to see it in a movie theater. Yeah, I guess I don't think I have anything else I could say really about it without kind of going into spoilers. All the performances were good. Robert Pattinson, of course, I watch him now going. I look at him with Bruce Wayne Batman eyes.
Same. I did the exact
You
same thing when
know,
I was watching it.
it's funny, and I find myself going, man, I can't wait to see him as Bruce Wayne and Batman. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that was my Tenet
Man,
experience.
one takeaway for me in watching it, I noticed this the first time around, is just that Elizabeth Debicki is
She
tall.
is, yeah.
Like, I knew she was tall, but I didn't know exactly how tall. And especially when she has scenes with John David Washington,
Hmm.
and he's, I think I would say average height, not necessarily tall by any means, but not short either.
You
And
know, I'm gonna
when
look up their
she's
heights now. I have to. Go
I
ahead.
and I looked them up,
Oh, you
and
did?
she's just very tall, and it makes anybody look short in comparison. Although Robert Pattinson, I think, is like 6'1", so he didn't
Yeah, she's
look that
six
in the same
three.
way. Yeah, six
Wow.
three, very tall.
Yeah.
So, and I think John David Washington's 5'9", 5'10". So it's like,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
she, he's average height, but up against her, it's just like,
Right.
wow, she is very tall in the movie
Yeah.
in general. But no, yeah, like you said, it's a good movie. And you mentioned before about your glasses fogging up, and I had been getting super tired of that aspect when I would go different places and I would wear my glasses instead of my contacts.
Hmm.
So just this past week, I ordered this off of Amazon, and what it is just supposed to be something you can spray on your glasses, and it will keep them from getting fogged up
Oh, really?
for at least it says up to 24 hours. And I have not tried it yet, but I will give it a shot sometime soon this week, and I'll let you know if it works as advertised or not, because that's always been one of my biggest pet peeves with wearing the mask,
Yeah.
is that it just fogs up my glasses so quick.
It's funny because I remember hearing so much about that, early on in this pandemic, and the whole thing with the
Yeah,
glass. And I honestly hadn't had that problem that much. I was like, wow, I guess maybe just the nature of the kind of mask I had been wearing.
mm,
Maybe they were just sealing better kind of right here
maybe.
so that
Yeah,
wasn't an issue.
the
But then
air.
sure enough, the mask I chose to wear to the movie theater was not one of those masks. And yeah, uh,
Mm.
but it
What do
was
you typically
also,
wear? The like the gator mask?
no, no, it was just, I mean, like I
Oh, you
will
wear it like
say, like I have some KN95s that I've worn, which do indeed kind of seal pretty good.
mm,
This was, which I don't know which mask I wore. Actually, I think it was a mask I ordered from T Fury. Some might know is a company that makes a lot of graphic tees, and
mm.
they've had a lot of their designs available now in masks, and I've bought a couple of them. And I think I was one of theirs I was wearing that night. And yeah, it definitely doesn't quite seal as well right here. So yeah, like I said, I found myself like moving it around and trying to find that like sweet spot, which I never really found. But again, the movie theater was pretty empty, like to the
Yeah.
point like if you're comfortable eating at a restaurant and sitting at your table and having to take your mask off, like it was kind of the same situation. I mean, I did put my mask on when I wasn't eating or drinking in the movie theater, but I could have left it off. And
Mm.
I don't think, given the how many guests were in that auditorium, I don't think anybody would have complained. There was almost nobody in
Yeah.
there.
Well, and you say, you're talking about the movie theaters and how kind of empty they were. And
Right.
granted, it was a Monday, but uh, I gotta say, for the first time in a while, I'm kind of worried about the whole movie theater exhibition industry.
Yeah.
Last week there was a whole bunch of announcements of movies moving again. We got Black Widow moving into next year. I think that
Yeah.
moved into May, and then
Yeah.
that moved Shang-Chi, since Black Widow moved into May. That moved Shang-Chi into, I want to say, July, and then now
That
Eternals
movie's supposed to
is
come out
moved.
next year. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
Shang-Chi. Yeah. Yeah, because they had
Oh,
already been filming it from slightly maybe before COVID hit, and I remember seeing some on-set photos at one point in time of
wow.
that movie being shot. So, yeah, so it's interesting because that moved to July, and then now Eternals is coming out pretty much a full year later, because I believe that moved into November of next year, and it was supposed to have come out
This
next
November.
this year. Yeah,
Yeah.
this November. So that's pushed out a full year, and it just really sucks because I saw someone make a comment online saying this is the first year in 10 years that we haven't have a
A
Marvel
Marvel
movie
movie.
release.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess on the flip side of that coin, you can say, well, we'll get three next year, and it's we didn't
Hopefully.
have, yeah, hopefully, hopefully, and it's just one of those things where you really think about the fact that so many movies have moved out of this year, and now the ones that haven't are all crowding around December. And then there's still maybe a couple in November. For now, the only ones that I know that are still in November um, are uh, James Bond. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think the Croods 2, which is a family movie,
Right.
um, and Soul, which is a Pixar Disney
Oh
movie.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And there had been rumors saying that maybe that was going to move to Disney Plus, but they're saying that they're going to still keep it in the theaters. So honestly, it will be very interesting to see one if those movies will move, but if they don't, what will the response be in the theaters? Because right now we don't have much to go off of other than Tenet, but Tenet isn't, to me, a movie that's going to bring in major crowds of all walks of life as
Right.
such of a family movie. And those are even hard to gauge, really, because Soul, even though it's a Pixar movie, it's not like Pixar movies are at this point you can automatically count them as money makers, because even though the last one came out slightly before COVID hit, it wasn't like it was a blockbuster at the theater. And I'm talking about Onward. That
Mm-hmm.
one didn't take the world by storm in terms of a new Pixar movie. And so I think the same could be said for Soul. It's not necessarily like it has a proven track record. It's not a sequel or something,
Right.
and it's not, by the nature of the story, maybe something that all people will gravitate towards. So it's hard to say and put that as a parameter of anything. Maybe the Crudes too, because the first one was a surprise hit, and this being a sequel to it, there could be that possibility there. But it's and again, Bond. That's not a movie necessarily that's everyone's taste to go run out to the theater to go see it. To me, honestly, the truest barometer of what people are willing to go see now in the theaters, if it's open up, because we still have New York and LA, major markets that aren't open with their theaters yet. But it would be Wonder Woman, because that movie made what, if not $1 billion, very close to it.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to have a sequel, that seems like a no-brainer, that it should at least do what the last one did in terms of just in a general time when there was no kind of pandemic going on. That should be making it the least the same that it made before, or if not more. So to me, that would be the real true test in terms of what that would bring to the theaters in terms of people readiness to come back if they can go to the theater. And with that being said, they hadn't moved it yet, but Dune is scheduled still in December.
Yeah.
And there's that. There's the Wonder Woman. There's a couple other movies that are, I think, at least possibility of money makers coming out in December. That, yeah, I don't know if those things move, what that would help hold for the theater chains. Like, do you think that they would rather, at that point, if other movies decided to move out of December and into the new year, do you think that they would just maybe just decide to shut down again, because just keeping them open at this point with no big movies isn't
Right.
helping them?
Like,
Or
what's the
do you
point?
think they would just try and maintain and try and push through until those bigger movies start to come out again, and maybe the February timeframe, I guess.
I think it all depends. I mean, let's say there's a situation like you're saying where the theater, movies are pushed out of 2020 almost altogether.
Hmm.
And then I think it all depends on, like, say AMC theaters though are finding a way to get people to come in to watch like old movies on the big screen just because people want to get out of their house and go see Back to the Future on the big screen and Raiders of the Lost Ark and whatever. If indeed
Yeah.
they're making money doing that, then I could see them staying open. But yeah, if they're not, if people are really just staying away, which it is interesting the things that people are choosing to stay away from versus what they're not.
Yeah.
um, you
Yeah.
know, I only went to the movie theater the one time so far, and again, it was a Monday night. I purposely went on a Monday night so it would be dead, and it was dead. I don't know what it's been like on the weekends. I'm kind of curious now if it's been busy enough, if the theaters have been reaching their limited capacity or not. I don't know, but yeah. If they do, I would like to think like AMC and other chains like Regal will try to find other ways to get people to come to a movie theater to watch some old stuff, in the meantime, until finally theaters are to that point where, I guess, and the world is to that point where we can have theaters back at 100% capacity, which
Yeah.
is where they're almost going to need to be, I think, for movies, for studios to want to release a Black Widow or what have
Yeah.
you. I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think if things are kind of on the track as things are now, that Wonder Woman will still come out. But then that's the big question. We could have another kind of big wave come through, and if that happens, I'm with you in that I'm concerned about movie theaters and the industry because I like going to the movie theater, and
Yeah.
I don't want it to change. I mean, I don't know if we talked about it on here, but yeah, there was that announcement from Disney about how much Mulan made uh, on Disney Plus, which what was it, like 230 million or something
That
around.
was
I think it
what
was.
was reported.
Was that not
That
true?
was reported. So it ends up not being true, actually.
Really?
If you are to believe a new report that it came out after the fact, I think I forget the company that was quoted. That
Mm-hmm.
Yahoo, I think it was Yahoo Movies, used some sort of figure in terms of saying it was 230 million, but someone behind that then came out and said that's not actually true. They misconstrued some of what the reporting was in terms of how we came about the numbers, but they were saying that maybe it was closer to more like 90 million
That
that
makes more
Mulan made.
sense because honestly, when I heard
Yeah.
that number, I was like, really? Like that that I mean, I don't know. I kind of wondered, hey, is that true or not? But sorry, go ahead.
No, and but to be fair, and 230 would have been awesome.
Oh
But
yeah.
even in the article prior to this second one that kind of came out, Disney had said that they were happy with what Mulan has been doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if that's spin or if they really would have expected more and didn't get it. But I
Mm-hmm.
mean, at least on the record, they're saying they're happy with it. So even let's say if it turns out that it was 90 million, you still have to factor in that that 90 million, if not 100%, very close to 100% is all profit
Yeah.
because they don't have to split it with theaters and anything else.
Right.
And so that's still pretty good because if let's say, if it was in the theaters and it maybe topped out at, just to be the benefit of the doubt, let's say maybe it did 600 million. You know, if a third of that goes to the theaters
Mm-hmm.
and then you had to account for marketing and stuff, maybe it brings their profits down on the movie to something closer to 200 million or 300 million or something like that. To whereas if now in this case they've made 90 million and it's all profit, I could see where they may be happy with that in terms of not maybe making as much of a loss or making close to an ideal of an idea of what profit might be had it been released theatrically and made 600, 700 million. So it's all in the way, I guess, you look at the numbers and how they're determining what's a success for them in that way.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, it wasn't necessarily a movie that was reviewed in the best of responses. A lot of controversy around it,
Yeah.
and just even within the movie itself, I think I saw mixed to good. I would say, just to be
I mean,
generous.
I would have thought I would have watched it by now, and I haven't. You know how
Yeah,
my viewing is right now with my busy
yeah,
schedule, and I'm very picky and choosy about what I watch right now. And
yeah.
I thought for sure I would have watched it and just went ahead and paid the, what is it, $30 to
thirty
watch it at
dollars.
home.
Yeah,
But I mean, given the kind of mixed reaction I've seen to it, that's why I haven't watched it yet. And
yeah.
I don't know if I'll wait until, what is it, December, when it'll just be a part of the
Hmm.
Disney Plus subscription generally. I may wait till
Yeah,
then to see it. Also, because
yeah.
I probably would have watched it if it looked like and struck me more as a movie that was very like kid friendly. I'm not saying it's not kid
Mhm.
friendly, but it didn't strike me as the kind of Disney film that my kids are going to enjoy. Like it seemed a little more
Totally.
adult. Adult tone. The tone of it seemed more adult and serious.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's another reason I haven't really bothered with it right now, given the reaction to it.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. It doesn't seem like, at least from Disney's standpoint, that they're willing to bring any of their other ones to Disney Plus and just skip the theatrical,
Yeah,
exhibition. But if the theaters can't hold out, then something's got to give at some point. So I guess we'll just have to kind of wait and see
wait
on
and
that
see.
front. But on the opposite side, the TV stuff seems to be doing pretty well. And,
Yeah,
right for now, at least for a while there was nothing on Disney Plus in terms of what we were promised, as far as Marvel shows and
mm-hmm.
Star Wars stuff. And there seems to be now some traction going on, especially on the Marvel side. Um, there was recently some announcements made where, uh, for She-Hulk, they finally had a showrunner named, and then the week
Yeah,
after, I think they had found their star, which is Tatiana Maslany, that was in Orphan Black. I
yep.
don't know if you ever watched the
I
show, but
did. I like that
she's a
show. I
fantastic
didn't keep
actress.
up with it, but that's a really great show.
Yeah,
She's
and so
amazing
to
in it.
have
Given the
someone,
amount of, sorry
oh
to cut you
yeah,
off, given the amount of
no,
like
go
different
ahead.
kind of roles she had to play, and I was
Yeah,
able to watch that
characters.
show and not even think of. Sometimes I had to remind myself. I'm like, wait a second, this is the same actress doing all of this.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
she's really good in it. Go on. Sorry.
yeah. No, just to have her as that, as the She-Hulk, that
Hmm.
was awesome. And then they had announced getting some different directors for the Miss Marvel series. There's like the guys that directed the latest Bad Boys movie, the Bad Boys for Life,
Yeah.
are going to be directing, and a couple other people that were mentioned. I'm not as familiar with their work, but it looks like they're getting people that could maybe relate to the source material, and in that way that can bring that authenticity to it,
Hmm.
because the character uh, is of Muslim descent, and that kind of background with her religion. So having people who can also bring that from their own personal experience into the show, I think is going to be beneficial for that as well. And then the other announcement that they had was, well, I guess before that, that next announcement, we had got some information that uh, the well, I say we had got information. Actually, I don't think anyone had knew this ahead of time, but it was during the Emmys that they dropped a little trailer for WandaVision.
Right.
and saying that that is still on track to come out this year. I think they didn't give a specific date, but the thought process was that maybe it would be in November.
That's
And
what I
you know
thought.
that,
Yeah.
yeah. And from that little trailer, it looks like it's going to have some ties into the comics with the character in regards to how Wanda has a breakdown and creates her own reality. And it looks like within that construct that there's going to be a lot of aspects that really bring something different to a different look to a Marvel entity property. With her maybe in her own fractured mind,
Hmm.
going to a place of comfort, like watching old school TV shows and putting herself in those the middle of those kind of things where it's maybe a comforting aspect to her and envisioning a life with vision that she never got to have. And it'll be fascinating to see that play out in a story.
Hmm.
And one of the other things that did just get mentioned recently was that the Disney Plus is going to be doing a Nick Fury TV show with Samuel L. Jackson starring. So that's pretty big because I honestly didn't know that if he would be back much because at some point you didn't see him much in the movies. And I
Right.
know a little bit of that had to do with when he had first signed on to be in the Marvel movies. I can't remember exactly how movies he had signed on for, but it was a lot when he first appeared in Iron Man at the end. It was, I want to say it was something like 10 or 15 movies he had signed on to do. And then so I think he got through a lot of those, and then it was maybe either time to renegotiate a new contract, or maybe they did a one-off deals for certain things, and that's why it had been like, oh, you didn't see him in this, that, or some other thing.
Right.
And then eventually you did see him in Captain Marvel. And so I think maybe around that time, maybe they renegotiated something, and possibly the fruits of that labor was this Nick Fury series. So there was no word in terms of what the concept of it would be about. There's a lot of possibilities based on where you see him at in Captain Marvel, how he's on that ship with other scrolls. There is something in the comic books
Mm.
called Sword that is something like Shield, but for Sword, they protect the planet from intergalactic threats, and so it could be something of that nature,
Mm.
which would be pretty cool and interesting. So it was nice to finally have some things on the Marvel train being announced in terms of casting for shows and some forward movement, hearing that shows have started back production because uh, Winter Soldier or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which had got shut down prior to COVID,
Yeah.
from what I understand, they were like a week or two away from finishing everything in terms of shooting and had to get shut down. So they had just recently started up again. And one of the things that I had heard was that, you know, you would think, oh, okay, well, they shot most of the series probably. So why not just start showing some of that and then kind of catch up to production once they could get film the other ones? Well, one of the things I heard is that I think it was Anthony Mackie or someone close to the production said that the way that they're shooting this series is the way that they would shoot a movie, and that when you shoot a normally you shoot a TV series, you shoot per episode, and you get your scripts and you shoot that episode for that week, and then you go on and shoot the next episode and so on. Well, apparently, I guess with I don't know if it's just this series or if it's all of these series, the way that they're doing it is shooting it like a movie. So you may be shooting what might be considered the sixth episode. You might be shooting that like within the first week of the shooting schedule. So it's not like they could just sort of say, okay, this first episode is done, because they may be shooting parts of what that first episode was now, and that it still needs to be edited and pieced
Right.
together. So I think that may have caused part of what there is in the delay of that. and being that getting pushed into next year, which they haven't given a time frame. But others are speculating that maybe there's the idea that there could be some sort of tag or button on the end of a Black Widow that could kind of go
Um,
into uh, Falcon and Winter Soldier,
so the
because
longer that gets
uh,
pushed back, the longer.
yeah, that the longer
Yeah,
Falcon and Winter Soldier could get pushed back. So
that's
yeah, there's that
if that's
aspect as
true, man.
well.
That's the
Right.
huge negative of doing that kind of thing, man. Like,
Totally.
if that's true,
Totally.
that sounds
If
like
that's
it.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it could go either way. So yeah,
Right.
so there's that, and I think that it doesn't help that those other things had gotten pushed back, but I feel like at least we're getting something in WandaVision and getting that this year to finally start to kick off that Marvel um, occupation of the Disney Plus corner,
Hmm.
and I'm looking forward to it just because it's something that will be uh, new territory, because we at least already had the Star Wars corner kicked off with the Mandalorian.
Right.
So now we have the Disney Plus shows for Marvel starting to come. That will be beneficial. And I think the last little bit of rumor that I heard recently, I'm kind of curious of what your opinion is, even though I know you're not as familiar with a lot of Marvel characters, and this one probably is really out of your wheelhouse. But the latest rumor was that uh, Keanu Reeves had been being looked at to play the character of Moon Knight, which is another character that had been announced for a Disney Plus series.
Right.
And there hasn't been much talk of that at all, honestly, in terms of all the other different series that they've sort of announced at this point for Disney Plus. And then the Nick Fury one kind of coming out of nowhere. The Moon Knight one hasn't been touched on. And the way these different casting announcements and stuff have been coming, they've almost covered all the different ones they've talked about, with the exception of that. So I could see how maybe within the next week or two we might get some information about the Moon Knight series. So with that rumor being out there, is that something you would even be interested in? Do you think Keanu might be distracting as a
Uh,
Marvel character, or what do you think?
that's a hard question for me to answer because I'm not, like you said, really familiar with Moon Knight. I remember when they
Yeah.
announced Moon Knight, I I kind of looked into it a little bit just because I'm like, okay, what's this? You know, a little Googling, what character is this? I don't even remember what I learned. I didn't look into it much. So it's hard for me to kind of give an opinion on him playing a part because I don't really know what the part's supposed to be like. I don't know if
Yeah.
Keanu is really a good fit. I think if it's the kind of perfect fit for him, the fact that it's Keanu, I don't think will be a problem. I don't think it'd be
Mm.
distracting. Like, oh, look, big star. I just think of him as Keanu Reeves, not this character. But I mean, I will say is, I mean, I'm going to say this, and he's still fantastic in like the John Wick films, and
Hmm.
but at the same time, he is getting older. Is the character
Right.
like, I don't know, how old is the character?
I'd say he's probably same way like how a Batman is and
Okay.
Superman is, and that
Yeah,
age range of,
I don't know. That's tough.
yeah.
Since I don't know the character, it's hard to say. I mean, I guess generally speaking, Keanu playing in a Marvel either movie or series, I'm down with it if it's something that fits him. If it's not like forced just because Keanu's popular right now, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
So I'm sort of more torn, just not one, like you said, his age. That is one thing that I would think in terms of how he would do for the long
Mm-hmm.
term. Because Kevin Feige has said in no uncertain terms that these characters that you see in Disney Plus shows can easily be seen in the movies going forward.
Right.
So I can understand why they want either current star power or already bigger star power in the Disney Plus series, because if they're going to be the faces of our uh, like a new team of Avengers, then you want that to translate well in either medium.
Right.
So I could easily see where you would want someone like Keanu to headline a show on Disney Plus of a character that's not really well known from a lot of people. The part where I think I would find interesting to have Keanu is dependent upon which version of the character they go to. When I was collecting Moon Knight and into Moon Knight, the character Mark Spector, who is Moon Knight, he was a mercenary, and he did a lot of that. He was kind of called the Bruce Wayne slash Batman of the Marvel universe, and that's kind of how he came off really.
Hmm.
And I liked that, and I thought that was good. There's been a more of a different take on the character within the last, I'd say, 6 7 years, to where that character of him being a mercenary is only a segment of his personality, because either the character is, and forgive me because I haven't kept up as much on the character in recent terms, but either he's schizophrenic or he has dissociative identity disorder, to where he's these different people. And so, and that mercenary Mark Spector aspect of him is one different type of his, people, sort of like, almost in an Orphan Black kind of way. He's these different personalities, but
Right.
in that it was clones, but this is all one person. So I would find either way, I feel like if he was doing the traditional take on the character, Keanu could do it no problem. And if he's this schizophrenic or DID type personality of a character, I'm curious to see Keanu tackle something like that, because it would require him to do a lot of different things. And maybe that would be something he would be interested in taking on that kind of character.
Right.
He's not doing it just to be in a Marvel series or a Marvel movie. It's like, oh, it's a challenge in acting that he has to play these different types of personalities, switch on a dime, kind of doing what Tatiana Maslany was doing for Orphan Black. And maybe that's an attractive kind of thing to an actor, to not be
Yeah.
stuck in doing something and being one thing, and he can be different things. So that's where I find it interesting to see what take they do on the character first, to see, if it's something, because I think if it's the more forward and straightforward take on the character, I wouldn't mind seeing anyone in the role, regardless if it's Keanu or not. But if it's one where he is doing all these different personalities and stuff, I would be kind of curious to see how Keanu as an actor would respond to that, and take on that kind of role. Because it reminds me of something that uh, in a different lifetime, maybe you could see Nicolas Cage doing and eating it up in that
Yeah.
respect. But yeah, so that's sort of where I lay with it.
Gotcha.
But just in that, and to kind of keep on to that Disney Plus train, and I had mentioned it just a minute ago, is that the Mandalorian. Yeah, we're
Yeah,
quickly approaching that.
we never talked about that trailer. It dropped like
No,
what, a week and a half or 2 weeks ago.
yeah,
And yeah, that's coming up. Yeah, a week and a half. You said.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's
coming
just
up on October 30th.
which is
So
oh okay, October 30th.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
we've got a little bit, but I mean,
Okay.
we're almost in October now. This coming week
Yeah.
will be into
Oh
October.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. No, it's funny because we were actually with the kids watching a couple episodes of The Mandalorian today,
yeah,
and just randomly. And yeah, when it comes to that trailer, I will say the trailer looks solid.
yeah.
I mean, it's not much of one; it's kind of a teaser, really, if anything. But we don't see too much. I don't want to see too much. I don't need to see anything. just put the show on
But
and I'll
people were
watch it.
complaining. People were complaining that they didn't show enough. But
I mean,
you know.
if I know there's a release date and the release date is actually happening, that's the kind of thing I don't need to see anything. Like,
Yeah,
it's a show I watch, and I look forward to the next season. I'm trying to think back to if I can think of exceptions. I mean, I guess when it came to like Game of Thrones, I remember always looking forward to what's this going to look like next season. But
Mm.
maybe I don't find that's the case with Mandalorian because this is a universe I know so well, and you know, what are they going to show me that's going to like blow my mind? I guess I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense, but it's just not the kind of property where I'm like, oh, I've got to see what's next. You know, like there's nothing about there's no anticipation there for like, oh my god, this there could be a trailer that just blows my mind, and I can't wait, I can't wait, I can't wait. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm crazy looking forward to that show. I really love The Mandalorian, but yeah, I didn't need to see the trailer. That's my long way of saying
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm gonna watch it, and
Yeah.
uh, you know, no, like, it's. I guess we knew, given the casting news and stuff, that Jedi are gonna kind of play a role in this next season, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
You know, that I think we've talked about before, like a lot of Star Wars properties not focusing enough on the Force and that aspect of Star Wars. And I'm looking forward to more of
Yeah.
that in this show. I mean, obviously, we've seen the Force in use already in the show,
Hmm.
but that seems like there's going to be even more of that as the show moves on forward, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I echo it, and I would say maybe there is something from my own personal experience with the series and my own personal experience with Star Wars canon that would allow me to have a bigger kind of like, oh, it would blow my mind if I saw it in a trailer,
Right.
and
You
that's
have
because
kind
of
of
certain.
consumed a lot more like the books and the animated show and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Correct. Yeah. So there are certain characters that are supposed to show up in this second season of The Mandalorian. So
Yeah.
to see some of those realized in live action, I think would definitely give me that moment if they had shown it. But I'm kind of glad that they didn't. Honestly,
Right.
I like seeing things in context, and so this is along those lines where some of those characters showing up. I'm down to see it in a trailer, but I'm more down to see it within the actual experience of watching that episode and seeing it for the first time in that way. So I'm really happy with the way that this first one turned out because it was just like it just kind of gave you that first taste because
Hmm.
it's right around the corner, and so it's like this can hold me off until getting to the real thing in the at the end of October. So yeah, I mean the things I think that stood out for me at least within this trailer were frankly it looked um, I won't say that it seems like they put more money into it, but it had a certain look of quality that seemed like they stepped up their game even
Mm.
from the last series, you know, from the first season. And one of the things that I did kind of rewind a couple times on were when you see the speeder bikes and they were coming off the cliff of a like a I don't know of a mountain or something. I just thought that was so visually impressive the way it looked
Right.
because usually you're just sort of used to those things being on a flat plane kind of almost like in a side scrolling kind of way that they're just
Yeah.
going in that angle. So to see them in this in that kind of form, it was like, oh, that's different, that's new, I like that take, and to see stuff like that. And I think that's what this show gives us is a way to play around with certain things that we
Right.
may have already seen before but done in a different kind of way, and I like seeing that. And then of course there's the child, and you know there's the scene where the Mandalorian gets into the fight, and then the child already knows some stuff's about to go down, and closes
Closes
the
the little
little
pod.
canopy
Yeah.
thing. Of, yeah,
Crib, whatever you
so
want to call it.
right, exactly.
Right.
So you know, it seems to be retaining that and everything, and
Yeah.
yeah, it just got me right at that level to where I was like, yep, that's all I needed, and now
Hmm.
I'm just ready to to go when it's ready to go. So yeah, I was very happy with what we got and didn't need to see more. And just looking forward to October 30th because
Yeah.
at this point it can't get here soon enough. But luckily, there are some things in the meantime that I'm watching and enjoying
Yeah.
that can get me to that point, like The Boys, which is very close to ending for this second
Yeah.
season, and then
I was gonna say
Lovecraft
really oh
Country.
oh Lovecraft Country too, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
And I was gonna say, even though yeah, we're pretty much out of time now, really
yeah.
quick. I'm still behind on The Boys, but you were right. I watched episode 3
Okay.
and I mean to backtrack for those who didn't hear, yeah, I like as of last episode, I'd only seen the first 2 episodes and I was a little like I wouldn't say I don't know if ho hum is the right way to put it, but I didn't find after watching those 2 episodes like I did after almost every episode of the first season, where I finished an episode of the first season. I was like, man, I got to watch the next one. Those first 2 episodes, I was like, okay, yeah, it's The Boys, but
Mm.
I don't know. But then after that third episode, I was like, okay, I got to watch the next episode. Of course, I haven't yet, but I'm really looking forward to watching the next episode and the episodes past that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with you. I kind of could see why they released 3 episodes right up front. Not that they're the first service to do that. We've seen that kind of routine before, but
Right.
no, yeah, those 3 episodes, the way that third episode ended, seemed like a good first drop when the season started this year. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
good.
And interesting enough, I'll swing back around to The Boys, but as you mentioned, in terms of them dropping the first 3 episodes and then, one per week afterwards, another show that I've been watching on HBO Max, Raised by Wolves,
Mm-hmm.
it started its show by dropping 2 episodes that first week. And so far, um, it's done so each week after. So there's been
Two
two
episodes every
episodes
week.
dropped every
Hmm.
week. Yeah. And I think this week dropped episodes 8 and 9. I'm not sure how many episodes are in the season, but yeah, I even like that as a week. And so that's different. I don't think I've seen any other show doing it that way either. But going back to The Boys really quick before we do get out of here,
Yep.
is that they had announced a spin-off series for that.
Yeah.
I guess they're really happy with the way this show has been doing for Amazon Prime, and they had announced a spin-off series that will feature superhero characters in college and having to deal with hormones and different types of
Mm.
morality and stuff like that. Some of the same type of aspects of the what we get in The Boys, but in a college level setting. And the college is being run by Vought, the company that is behind
Okay.
the serum of what gives the boys and the other people in the show their superpowers. So it's like an incubator, and for people who end up out of it, in the way that a normal person would work is you go to a good college and you try and get a good job at some sort of top tier company of some sort. And in this respect, I think you get out and you get to doing well. You get to vie for different cities that you can
Yeah.
be the superhero for. So it's kind of an interesting idea and concept. So I'm kind of curious to see once we'll get some more information about that in terms of who's the showrunner and all that. Because Eric Kripke, who is the showrunner for The Boys, who I first really became familiar with, was the showrunner for Supernatural. Um, he announced that they were doing this spinoff, so I don't know if he's going to in turn also show run that show or have someone else, and we'll see who else ends up being on that show. But I'm
Mm.
sure it's going to be pretty high profile and a priority for Amazon Prime because of how well The Boys has been doing on its own.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. But yeah, The Boys is good. And then Lovecraft Country. Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen tonight's episode yet, obviously, but last
Right.
week's episode, man, um, that show
Yeah, man.
is that show is solid. Like it,
Yeah.
and again, like the podcast has been a nice companion to it. Like
Yeah.
opening my
I've been
eyes
listening to
to
it.
many things that I wasn't even thinking about while watching it. Like it's
Absolutely.
yeah. definitely a good listen if you're watching
It
that
is.
show. Check it out.
Yeah, so, and it's an official podcast by
Yeah.
HBO and stuff, so it's really good. The two people that are on it, one is a screenwriter for the show, and then another one is a podcast host. And
Right.
yeah, and they usually frequently have a guest on. And this past week was the Jamie Chung, who is the center of last week's episode. She was on as a guest, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's fantastic. And like you said, the show itself has just been such a nice thing to experience because it does what it's doing really well and playing into the horror elements along with mixing it with other genres. It's just been fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Really solid show. But yeah, we could go on for probably another hour, I think. But we're gonna
We really
here
could.
on the East Coast, so I gotta go to bed, unfortunately. Anything else you wanted to add really quick before we
No,
wrap
I
things
think
up?
we're good. I mean,
Yeah.
like you said, we definitely could. There's still a lot of news out there, but
Yeah.
yeah, I know yeah, the time has come, and maybe we'll get to some of that next week. But maybe there'll be some more news to talk about that we can get into next week as well.
Yeah, true. Yeah, we should do this more often. With that, as always, we'd love to hear back from everyone listening and watching. You can, first of all, email us at feedback@flickereffect.com. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to comment below, like and subscribe, hit those buttons, and hit that bell icon to be notified when we post any videos or go live in the future. And you can reach out to us on Instagram and Twitter at Flicker_effect. With that, I am David Lott.
And I am Bobby Jackson.
Thanks for listening and watching.